The news spreading across America right now has millions of seniors checking their bank accounts and calling the Social Security Administration in disbelief. What seemed impossible just weeks ago has become reality as Congress pushed through emergency legislation that will put an extra $300 into the pockets of every single Social Security recipient starting next month. This isn't a proposal anymore. This isn't something being debated in committee rooms. This is happening right now, and the checks are already being processed. The bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in what political analysts are calling the most significant Social Security reform in over 40 years. And the speed at which this moved through both chambers has left even seasoned Washington observers stunned. For those who have been struggling to make ends meet on fixed incomes, watching grocery prices skyrocket while their Social Security payments barely budge, this represents a lifeline that many had given up hope of ever seeing. The legislation doesn't just provide a one-time payment, it permanently increases the base benefit amount by $300 monthly for every recipient regardless of their current benefit level. Whether you're receiving $800 a month or $3,000 a month, you're getting this increase. The Congressional Budget Office estimates this will inject over $100 billion annually into the economy, and economists are already predicting ripple effects that could stimulate growth in sectors ranging from healthcare to retail. What makes this even more remarkable is how it happened. Behind closed doors, a coalition of lawmakers from both parties who rarely agree on anything found common ground after a series of town halls revealed the depth of financial crisis facing American seniors. Representatives returned to Washington with stories of constituents choosing between medications and meals, of elderly Americans losing their homes because Social Security couldn't keep pace with property taxes, of grandparents unable to help their struggling families because there simply wasn't anything left after basic expenses. The human stories broke through the partisan gridlock in a way that statistics and policy papers never could. The mechanics of the increase are surprisingly straightforward. The Social Security Administration has been directed to implement the raise immediately through emergency executive action while the funding mechanisms are finalized. The money is coming from a combination of sources that Congress pieced together, including closing corporate tax loopholes that have existed for decades, reallocating funds from programs that consistently run under budget, and implementing a small surtax on high-income earners that affects less than 2% of taxpayers. Critically, the funding structure is designed to be permanent and sustainable, addressing the long-standing criticism that Social Security fixes are just temporary band-aids. Financial advisors across the country are already fielding calls from clients wanting to know how this affects their retirement planning. For someone receiving the average Social Security benefit of around $1,800 monthly, this represents a 16% increase in their guaranteed income. That's the difference between constantly worrying about money and having breathing room. That's being able to run the air conditioning in summer without fear. That's affording physical therapy that Medicare doesn't fully cover. That's taking a grandchild out for their birthday without calculating every dollar. The psychological relief alone may prove as valuable as the financial benefit, as studies have consistently shown that financial stress accelerates cognitive decline and physical health problems in older adults. But there's more to this story that hasn't made the headlines yet. Buried in the legislation are provisions that could reshape retirement security for generations. The bill includes automatic cost of living adjustments that trigger whenever inflation exceeds 3% annually, ensuring that Social Security keeps pace with actual living expenses rather than lagging years behind. There's also language that protects these benefits from future congressional cuts, requiring a supermajority vote to reduce them, essentially making this increase politically untouchable. Perhaps most significantly, the legislation establishes a commission to study expanding Social Security further, with specific mandates to examine raising the minimum benefit floor and adjusting the formula to better reflect the expenses seniors actually face. The reaction from advocacy groups has been euphoric. Organizations that have spent decades fighting for Social Security expansion are celebrating what they're calling a watershed moment. ARP released a statement calling it the most important victory for American seniors since the creation of Medicare. Grassroots organizations that mobilized millions of seniors to contact their representatives are taking victory laps, proving that organized citizen action can still move mountains in Washington. Even groups that traditionally oppose government spending increases have been measured in their criticism, recognizing the political reality that opposing direct financial help to seniors is electoral suicide. The implementation timeline is moving faster than anyone expected, with the Social Security Administration working around the clock to update their systems and ensure the first enhanced payments go out within 30 days. Officials have confirmed that recipients don't need to do anything, don't need to call, don't need to fill out forms. The increase will automatically appear in their next payment, whether they receive it by direct deposit or paper check. For those who already received their payment for this month, they'll see a supplemental payment within 2 weeks to make up the difference, ensuring nobody has to wait a full cycle to benefit from this legislation. The agency has set up dedicated hotlines and expanded their customer service staff by 40% to handle the anticipated flood of inquiries, though they're emphasizing that calling isn't necessary and may actually delay help for people with genuine problems. What's particularly interesting is how this legislation came together in the final hours. Multiple sources inside Congress have revealed that the breakthrough happened during a late-night negotiating session when a Republican senator from Florida and a Democratic senator from Vermont, two politicians who disagree on virtually everything, found themselves sharing stories about their own parents struggling on Social Security. That personal connection broke the logjam, and within 72 hours they had assembled a coalition of 76 senators willing to support the package. The House followed suit 48 hours later with a vote of 384 to 51, numbers that are almost unheard of in today's polarized political environment. The president signed it into law less than 6 hours after it reached his desk, in a ceremony that featured seniors from all 50 states. The economic implications are staggering and complex. Retail analysts predict an immediate surge in consumer spending as seniors who have been delaying purchases finally have the means to buy necessities they've been putting off. Pharmaceutical companies are bracing for increased demand as people can now afford their full medication regimens. Local businesses in retirement communities are already seeing upticks in reservations and appointments as word spreads. Housing advocates note this could help thousands of seniors avoid eviction or foreclosure, stabilizing communities that have seen increasing homelessness among the elderly. The multiplier effect of this spending could create jobs and generate tax revenue that partially offsets the program's cost. However, not everyone is celebrating. Some fiscal conservatives warn this sets a dangerous precedent and question the long-term sustainability despite the funding mechanisms Congress claims to have secured. Think tanks across the political spectrum are rushing to model the 30-year implications, with projections ranging wildly depending on economic assumptions. There are concerns about inflation, though most economists note that increasing purchasing power for a demographic that spends most of their income on necessities is fundamentally different from stimulus that might chase limited luxury goods. Some younger workers are expressing frustration on social media, questioning why seniors get immediate help while student loan relief and childcare support remain political footballs, though polling shows overwhelming public support for the Social Security increase across all age groups. The international community is watching closely as well. Countries facing their own aging population challenges are studying the American approach to see if it offers lessons for their systems. Japanese officials have already requested briefings on the funding mechanisms. European policymakers are debating whether similar increases are politically feasible in their parliamentary systems. This could represent a turning point in how developed nations approach old age security in an era of increasing longevity and rising costs. American exceptionalism in social policy has often meant doing less than other wealthy nations. But in this case, the United States may be leading the way toward more generous and sustainable retirement systems. For individual recipients, the practical impact varies, but is universally positive. Consider someone living in a high-cost area like Southern California who receives $2,000 monthly from Social Security. That $300 increase represents their entire monthly grocery budget, or 2 months of their supplemental Medicare premiums, or the difference between staying in their apartment and having to move in with relatives. For someone in a lower-cost rural area receiving $1,200 monthly, that same $300 might cover their utilities and internet, allowing them to stay connected with family and avoid the isolation that plagues rural seniors. The percentage increase means more to those with lower benefits, but the absolute dollar amount provides meaningful relief across the economic spectrum. What happens next is equally important. The commission established by the legislation has 18 months to deliver recommendations on further reforms. Early indications suggest they'll propose raising the cap on taxable wages, currently set at $160,000, which would generate substantial revenue while only affecting high earners. There's talk of adjusting the benefit formula to be more progressive, providing larger percentage increases to those who earned less during their working years. Some commissioners are pushing for a comprehensive look at how Social Security treats women, who often face lower benefits due to career interruptions for caregiving. The political momentum created by this victory has emboldened advocates to push for even more ambitious reforms they wouldn't have dared propose 6 months ago. The media coverage has been intense, but surprisingly focused on human interest stories rather than political horse racing. News outlets are featuring seniors describing what this means for their daily lives, the medications they can now afford, the home repairs they can finally make, the ability to help a grandchild with school expenses. These stories are resonating with Americans of all ages because nearly everyone has a parent or grandparent affected by this change. Social media has been flooded with photos of people hugging their elderly relatives, posts about taking mom out for a nice dinner to celebrate, videos of seniors crying with relief. This kind of emotional connection to policy outcomes is rare and powerful, potentially reshaping how Americans think about government's role in their lives.